Hi, everybody. It's Bob Husler from The Fan. Coming up next, it's Locked Up Sports.
Yo, what's up, everybody? I'm Bob Walters. This is Locked Up Sports. A mixed bag yesterday for the Mets in the doubleheader. They changed the lineup. They go with a new lineup tonight. We'll have it all for you right here on Mets Extra. Locked Up Sports. Well, it was a good finish to yesterday with the doubleheader. But the problem with doubleheaders is you usually end up splitting them, right? Rarely do you see sweeps of the doubleheaders. Every once in a while you do, and the Mets would have liked to have taken the first two games of the series, but because of the rain out 2 nights ago, they had the forced to have a split admission doubleheader yesterday. And like most doubleheaders, they split them. And the fact that they lost the first one made it the second game rather nervous. A little nervous. The contentual inside Citi Field with they couldn't have got swept yesterday. And Mendoza came out with a totally revamped lineup for the second game after basically blowing it in the first one by pulling out Clay Holmes with 90 pitches. He was, he wasn't dominant by any stretch, but he was okay. He was a bit wild. He walked Christian Yelich to lead the inning off, and he brought in Reed Garrett. He didn't like what he saw. He brought in Reed Garrett, and it was double single walk grand slam, game over. Just like that. And it was just, exactly what we had seen the last 3 weeks from this team. And it was just another loss thrown on the pile, and it put the pressure on in the second game. And I think Mendoza felt it because he switched up the lineup. He did things just totally different. He went to Diaz for 4 outs. You could tell that was a big game that they had to win. And, does it change anything? Not really. It's a step in the right direction, I guess. Tonight is a big game because tonight you got to you can take the series off the Yankee, take the series heading into the Yankee series on the 4th of July, and you could try and, maybe get something going. God forbid they ended up losing. They got swept in this series, and they went into that Yankee series just crawling, dragging themselves into it. Then it would have been a disaster. But the fact that they did salvage the second game in the doubleheader yesterday, and now they have a chance to take this series with one of their better pitchers on the mound tonight, going up against, the old friend, Jose Quintana. They have a chance to at least put a good foot forward heading into the Yankees series. Now, they're certainly not out of the woods. I told you a couple of days ago, it's going to take probably 2 weeks or 10 days to at least get them somewhat stabilized here from the losing that they've had over the last 3 weeks. Now, before we get into tonight's game, and we'll talk about yesterday's doubleheader, there is, what else? More injury news for the Mets pitchers, as they've just been devastated. The whole pitching staff has been devastated from day one this year. From spring training, they've been suffering just injury after injury after injury after injury from the pitching staff. And now it is Paul Blackburn, who, listen, many people are not sad to see Paul Blackburn go on to the IL because it just, he hasn't had it. He hasn't pitched very well since coming back. He was injured, then he came back for 2 starts. He pitched okay in that first start, then he was no good the next 2 starts, and now he's back injured. And that's been, the story of Paul Blackburn's career, basically. And then the other injury is Nunez out of the bullpen. So another bullpen arm. So they lose one in the rotation. They lose one in the bullpen today. You could tack it onto the list. And just forget about the stuff before the season and the spring training and the injuries to Minaya and those guys. Just in the last 3 weeks, which has basically been this stretch of terrible baseball for the Mets, they've lost Senga, McGill, Blackburn, Kranick, Corning, Canning, and Nunez. 6 pitches, 3 weeks. And before that, they had a big issue with pitchers, injuries, and just the staff. It's a complete shambles. So now they got to piece some more things together. Senga was throwing yesterday. They said that Senga did face some live batters, He's still on the 15-day DL. You're still looking at another month probably for Senga. And that's just the way it is. That's just the reality of the situation. He pulled the hamstring, 2 months. And that's just the way it is. He takes his time getting back. These injuries always take longer than they say they're going to. For some reason in baseball, they take longer than, like, if you're looking at a basketball or football injury and they say 4 to 6 weeks, it's usually 4 to 6 weeks. In baseball, or at least with the Mets, and they say 4 to 6 weeks, it's 8 to 12 weeks minimum. So it's a little crazy. Now, yesterday, of course, the Mets, listen, they split the doubleheader. Game one, we'll start with game one. Game one was they would, you had Clay Holmes pitching well. The Mets had themselves a lead. They had a 2-1 lead after falling behind 1-0 into the 6th inning. He was kind of cruising along, only 90 pitches when he got pulled out. He was having some location issues. He walked 4. He only did strike out 1, but they were hitting the ball. They were hitting him at the Mets defense. So he was getting lucky there. And listen, I would have left him in. He walked Yelich to lead off the 6th, and then he got an out. So there was 1 out, Yelich on first, and he went to Reed Garrett, who has not been good the past 3 weeks. Everything's the past 3 weeks with the Mets. Past 3 weeks, Reed Garrett has not been good. Terrible. Comes on yesterday, like I said, Yelich on first, 1 out, 2-1 Mets, and it's double, single, walk, grand slam. And that's it. Game over. They were down 6-2 right there. The Mets never got anything else going. They went, into game 2 in a whimper with a 7-3 loss. Just a not good game for the Mets at all. Period. And then the pressure was on. So Mendoza went into the locker room. He felt the pressure because he came out with a brand new lineup. He had Nimmo leading off. He had Lindor hitting DH, which I can live with that. It's not a bad play. Second game of a doubleheader. Give Lindor a break. He doesn't have to go out in the field. You finally get somebody who could swing a bat at the DH spot, and they come through in the 6th inning. They come through with, I'm sorry. In the 2nd inning, they come through, I'm thinking of the first game, with back-to-back home runs, Nimmo grand slam, Lindor solo home run. Lindor knocked in another run later in the game. So maybe Lindor is starting to come out of it a bit. Maybe this is a little turning point. He just needed a little switch. He's not leading off, less pressure. He threw Nimmo in there, who's been who's been swinging the bat better for the Mets than most people in that lineup. He hasn't been great, but he's been swinging the bat better than the rest of the lineup. And Nimmo, grand slam, his 2nd of the season, 3rd of his career, and then followed up right there by a Lindor home run, and it's 5-0 Mets, and you could breathe a little bit easy. Gary Cohen, I think, said on the broadcast, just a deep breath, a breath of fresh air to take the pressure off there. And Blade Tidwell, the kid, because you think about it, listen, they lost their 4th straight game. They lost because Mendoza went in there and made a pitching change that just the game fell apart in 10 minutes after the pitching change. They've now lost 4 in a row. The crowd is ready to just bury this team and get all over them. The media is looking to bury the team. They haven't won anything in 3 weeks. And you got Blade Tidwell, a rookie kid pitcher on the mound in game 2, a game that you just desperately need. And in the 2nd inning to get a grand slam followed by a home run, solo home run, back-to-back, it just kind of took the pressure of the game off of Blade Tidwell, who pitched well, pitched into the 6th inning. He just fell apart a little bit in the 6th inning, gave up a couple runs, but he gave them 5 innings. They bridged it to Diaz, who came in and got a 4-out save, and the Mets got a win that they desperately needed. It's not a big win. It's not in the grand scheme of things. It's not going to be a big win. It's just one that they desperately needed. They couldn't lose the first 2 games of this series. And then come in tonight, series already lost, facing a sweep, Yankees tomorrow, forget it. It would have been a horror show today. Because the day off, we all said, okay, everybody needed the day off. And then they came out and it rained. They kind of got, they got screwed a little bit because now you doubleheader. And like I said, you don't really sweep doubleheaders. So they got the win yesterday, and now that brings us into today. Tonight, the series finale, rubber match, Mets, Brewers. And like I said, the left-hander, our old friend Jose Quintana, 6-2, 3.3 ERA. He's been pitching well. Started off not so great for the Brewers, and then he's been pitching well. as of late. And David Peterson, the Mets have won 8 straight starts that Peterson has started at Citi Field. To try and make it 9 tonight. They really need to make it 9 tonight. They really need to win this series just to go into the Yankee series with a little bit of confidence. And not that the Yankees are world beaters right now, not by any stretch, but it's, the Mets just for their own good just need a win here. They're 2 games behind the Phillies. You also don't want to let that stretch out any further, because that could be 5 or 6 before the All-Star game and before the All-Star break. And then you're looking at, okay, we lost touch with the Phillies with 6 back, and it just kind of would, pile on from there. So you want to go into the All-Star break strong. You got to get this series. Let whatever happens against the Yankees happen. Those things it's a different kind of series. It just is. They usually not sweeps. It's usually 2 out of 3. And even if they get tonight and they lose 2 out of 3 to the Yankees, it's not the end of the world. If they lose tonight and then lose 2 out of 3 against the Yankees, it's just a continuation, more of the same of the last 3 weeks. And you can't have that. You got to somehow put a stop to what's going on. It's just snowballing, rolling down the hill. And it's all falling apart here. There's still, after everything that's gone through, there's still 11 games over 500. There's still only 2 out of the division. There's still 9 games ahead of the Braves. So you still have time to put the brakes on and stop this thing rolling downhill and get it back going uphill in the right direction. And you're going to need a good performance from Peterson, and that's the guy kind of you want on the mound time, right? Peterson's your ace now. Out of whatever's left of this staff, of this starting rotation, Peterson is your ace. He's 5-4. He's pitched to a 3.3 ERA, so he's pitched into some bad luck, but he's been good lately, and he's probably got the best stuff right now. He's probably the ace of the staff. He could very well be the ace of the staff. I mean, Senga is, but you heard Dexter Henry right here on this show say that he thought Peterson was the ace of the staff. So Blackburn is out as far as did the rain delay game where he pitched an inning, 1.5 rain delay, then come back and he got shelled. Did that have any, is that the reason why he's got the soreness in the elbow? Is that why it happened? They didn't tell us. They're not going to tell you. But I wouldn't be surprised if it had some kind of contributing factor to it, right? You don't see pitchers do that, and now he's back on the IL. And which is not a terrible thing. Maybe he gets a reset, but again, that's what we said about Vientos coming in, and he went 1 for 13. So these resets, and we're all just guessing. We're all just grasping at straws at this point, to be honest with you. Because what else is there to say about this? This was a team that was one of, if not the best team in baseball for 2.5 months, and then it's just worst team in baseball, out of nowhere. And they're slowly kind of getting it back. They took the 2 out of 4. They split the series with the Braves, but then they went and got swept by the Pirates. Now they have a chance here. They split the first 2 with the Brewers. Let's see if they could get a series win now. Here to be their first series win in a while, since before the Tampa Bay series, where this whole thing kind of started on a Friday night against Tampa Bay at Citi Field. So they get the series win, then go and deal with the Yankees starting tomorrow. 3 games, all 3 day games. I believe they're all 3 day games because it's over the weekend. You got the 4th of July tomorrow, day game, and then you got Saturday day game and Sunday day game, which I'm surprised that they're not. ESPN almost always takes them as the Sunday Night Baseball. I guess this year they didn't, or at least this series they didn't. So we get the final edition of the Subway Series coming on starting tomorrow. And it's always fun. I'm not a big Subway Series guy. It does fill the ballpark though. Fans get excited about it. It's still going back and forth. It is still for bragging rights, because you could say something if your team ends up stinking and the Mets are heading towards stinking. You could say, well, we beat the Yankees at least, but so we'll see what happens. The All-Star teams have been announced. Well, not the teams, the starters and the reserves, and then there'll be some additions onto that in the next couple days. But the Mets have 3 representatives. Alonso, and they're the 3 you'd expect. Alonso, who did not get the starting nod, Freddie Freeman did, and I don't have a problem with that. I think Freddie Freeman is one, it's in Atlanta, right? And Freddie Freeman's was a long-time Brave, won a championship with the Braves. So I'm okay with that. Freddie Freeman is your first base starter for the National League. Alonso is on the team in the reserve. He'll be in the home run derby as always. Soto on the team, not a starter. Again, the Braves have their guy. He's in the center field. I'm not surprised that he got the start over Soto, because Soto didn't have a good, he's had a good month. He had a bad, not a great first 2 months. He wasn't all-star caliber first 2 months. He was all-star starter caliber in June. But listen, it doesn't matter. If you're somebody who's gonna sit there and be all annoyed about that Soto didn't get the start and that Alonso got robbed of being a starter, who cares? Who cares? The game doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if he's a starter. It doesn't matter. He's gonna get in. You're gonna see him play. You're gonna see Pete in the home run derby the night before. It's really irrelevant. I could care less. The All-Star games is okay. I watch it. I'll watch the home run derby, but as far as wasting any of my energy or any of my life being upset about Alonso not getting a start over Freddie Freeman. Freddie Freeman's better than Pete Alonso. Let's be real. And he's probably more popular, and he got the votes, and it is what it is. He was a Brave forever. He's he just leave it alone. And then you do have Soto, who is the starting shortstop for the National League. His first Midsummer Classic team as a New York Met. We know last year he probably deserved to be on the team, didn't get on. There was the Alonso thing. Again, a whole bunch of nothing, right? Didn't mean anything. And then 2 weeks after the All-Star game, nobody cares. Nobody even remembers. I had forgotten about that whole thing. And we even had somebody on here who said that Alonso, broke the news that Alonso was the reason. And listen, I can't be bothered with it. So those are your 3 Mets All-Star representatives. Take from it what you will. It's the 3 guys who you figured it would be in the beginning of the season. Soto, Alonso, Lindor. Lindor is the starting shortstop. His first All-Star game as a Met. So that's that. Tonight, we got the lineups for you tonight, and they did it. Listen, Mendoza did it again. He went a little rogue here. It's a different lineup than we've seen. They have somebody who can actually hit in the DH. They have the DH in a weird spot in the lineup here. Let's go through it for you right here. So tonight's lineup for the Mets against the Jose Quintana and the Milwaukee Brewers. Leading off is the DH. Marte's leading off in the DH position. You got Lindor hitting second, where he hit for most of his Mets career up until last year when they switched him, and he went to leadoff. And from that moment on was the best leadoff hitter in baseball, which I think he'll go back to leadoff. I think this is just kind of like, let's just change anything. Something's got to change, right? Because we can't keep doing the same thing and expecting a different result. So he's changing something. The lineup he changed yesterday, it worked. They got to win. He's going to do it again today. You got Soto in the 3-hole. Right field, Alonso, the first baseman, in cleanup. Nimmo goes from 1 to 5 now. 1 year leading off yesterday, now down to 5. In left field, Vientos at third, hitting 6. Terren's up to 7th. Right, give it a shot. Can't hurt. He's behind the plate. Beatty is your 8-hitter, and Tyrone Taylor, the center fielder, is the 9-hitter. And, of course, David Peterson on the mound for the Mets. They need a win tonight. It's a broken record. I know it sounds like a broken record. I've been saying it, day after day after day after day, and more times than not, they don't get the win. They need a win tonight. You got to win this series. You got to start winning series. You got to start turning this thing around. You can't. And I know Steve Cohen said, next couple of weeks, we're getting our pitchers back. And what happened 2 days after he said that? They lost 2 more pitchers. So the pile of injured pitchers is a lot bigger than the pile of healthy pitchers that the Mets have. And I don't know where it's coming from. I don't know where the pitching's coming from, but it's certainly not coming off the IL anytime soon. Minaya, you're looking at a month. Senga, you're looking at a month. I'm telling you. I don't care that they say they've been throwing live hitters, but it's a month for at least them 2. So you're going to have to somehow patch this thing together for the next month and try and stay in a race and hope that the bats come to life one of these days. Because there's been spurts of it. There's been, flashes of the bat coming out of the slump, this team. And then they go right back in it. So that's why tonight's an important game. So tonight, 7 o'clock, games on SNY. I think it's Gary and Keith. And then it's also on 880 Mets Odyssey Radio with Keith Rad, friend of the show, and Howie Rose. And like I said, look, Marte leading off. That's an old spot for Marte. The old man getting back into his old, back into the old spot in the lineup, at the leadoff spot. And it's a weird spot to have a DH too. But hey, you know what? You got to change something, right? Something's got to work. So that's going to do it for us. Enjoy your 4th of July tomorrow. Mets, Yankees tomorrow. We're going to try and do something each day. Me and Brett, I talked to Brett before. He wants to do a show. We want to do a show like each somehow do one each day. We got work. I got work. But we'll figure it out. You'll hear from one of us on tomorrow, Saturday, and Sunday. So that does it for us. Enjoy the game tonight, everybody. Let's see if we get a win. Jesus, let's take a series. More injuries, lineup changes, all-star teams. We did it all today. So that does it for me. I'm Bob Walters from the Brian Gunzel Studios. Enjoy the game tonight, everybody. See ya.